Michael Hastings, of course, a 33-year-old reporter who passed away in a car accident at 4:30 in the morning recently. He wrote for Rolling Stone, BuzzFeed. He was also a contributor to the Young Turks. And we've been asking some questions about his death. Obviously, it was strange circumstances. His car, of course, wound up being in a fiery crash. A lot of people have been asking questions. But overall, you have no evidence yet that there's anything amiss other than a terrible, horrible car crash. But now there is some piece of information that we were looking for, and that is significant, that now makes me think that there should be a much wider investigation. And that comes from Richard Clarke. Now, Richard Clarke is a very significant person. He was a former U.S. National Coordinator for Security, Infrastructure Protection, and Counterterrorism. He's the guy who was right about bin Laden and al-Qaeda. He was in the Clinton administration as a counterterrorism advisor, and then he was in the Bush administration. And he had been telling them, al-Qaeda is coming. We have to do something. We have to do a principals meeting. We have to get ready. They didn't listen to him, and at times they said, oh, he's got his hair on fire. Turned out he was 100% right. Now, he has voiced some concerns about what could be done to cars remotely. And this is shocking, even if you think that there's nothing untoward in the Michael Hastings story, which is, of course, incredibly possible, right? Even removed from that story, this facts that Richard Clarke is giving us is amazing, and it affects all of us. So what is it? Let me explain. He says, there's reason to believe that intelligence agencies for major powers, including the United States, know how to remotely seize control of a car. Whoa, hold on. We didn't know that. Why is this not the biggest revelation in a long, long time? So again, putting Hastings' situation aside for a second, so they can seize control of any of our cars? And what if you have, there's 1.5 million people in the intelligence community. I don't know how many of them have access to this kind of power, but I assume not that many, but a decent amount. How about if they got an ex-wife or a guy they hate? They can remotely control your cars? And he continues, what has been revealed as a result of some research at universities is that it's relatively easy to hack your way into the control system of a car and to do such things as cause acceleration when the driver doesn't want acceleration, to throw on brakes when the driver doesn't want the brakes on, to launch an airbag. You can do some really highly destructive things now through hacking a car, and it's not that hard. Now look, I had read similar things, but it was on some blog somewhere, and I thought, well, maybe yes, maybe no, right? This is Richard Clarke. He was our top counterterrorism advisor. He had every piece of information available to him when he was inside the United States government. He says doing it is easy. We didn't sign on for that. Did you sign on for the government being able to control your car remotely? Who in their right mind would agree to that? It gets even scarier. He says, so if there were a cyber attack on the car, and I'm not saying there was, I think whoever did it would probably get away with it. Now, if you thought the rest of it was bad, it turns out it's incredibly easy to get away with it, almost impossible to detect. Why is the whole country not talking about this? Is Richard Clarke wrong? If he is, I'd like to see 10 other guys counter him on it. If he's not wrong, okay, they can destroy any of our cars, whoever they are. I'm not saying it's Obama, I'm not saying it's the government, I'm not saying it's the FBI, but obviously some people can do it. They have this enormous power and you can't detect it. All right, continuing. He says, I'm not a conspiracy guy. In fact, I've spent most of my life knocking down conspiracy theories. But my rule has always been you don't knock down a conspiracy theory until you can prove it wrong. And in the case of Michael Hastings, so he is specifically talking about this case, in the case of Michael Hastings, what evidence is available publicly is consistent with a car cyber attack. And the problem with that is you can't prove it. Now think about why Richard Clarke's even saying this in the first place. He doesn't have to say this, and in fact, he's probably going to get a lot of heat for saying this. But he's saying it anyway. I don't know if he knows anything more than we know. But even this is incredibly troubling. Furthermore, He says, I think you'd probably need the very best of the U.S. government intelligence or law enforcement officials to discover it. But now, in this case, unfortunately, those are among the different people that people suspect. They're worried that Michael Hastings was going to write about the intelligence community. In fact, there's an email from Michael Hastings, which was sent to BuzzFeed, and it was also sent to the Young Turks, where he said, I'm worried that the FBI is investigating me. Now, the FBI says they're not investigating me. Who knows, right? But whether it's the FBI or anyone else, he's worried the intelligence community is looking into him. The only people who can detect whether there was a car cyber attack is the intelligence community. And by the way, the LAPD, now a lot of course, immediately, everybody else in the news is like, LAPD said they're not suspecting anything that's, wrong or untoward. But I mean, if I'm the LAPD and I can't detect this, I look at it and I say, yeah, it's a single car crash at 4:30 in the morning. There's no reason to suspect out of the gate that somebody did something to him. But that doesn't mean that the LAPD is right. And it's not even the LAPD saying definitively, no, nothing bad happened here. We investigated and we're positive nothing happened. They just say it looks like a one-person car crash. You're right, that's what it looks like. And here's a former counterterrorism advisor for the United States of America saying, oh, it looks like a car cyber attack, and it would be incredibly easy to do, and you couldn't detect it. Well, if you're not scared by that, you're not paying attention, that makes, like, whether they actually did it to Michael Hastings is an entirely different question. But the fact that they have that capability is amazing. And by the way, if we have that capability, how far are the Chinese from being able to have that capability? How far are the Russians from being able to have that capability? Can they do it to people inside Russia? Can they do it to people inside the United States? Are you worried yet? This is not a light person saying this. This is a guy who had access to every top secret document in the United States. Top counterterrorism advisor. Now look, two more things on this. One, there's got to be a serious investigation here. You can't just assume that it's fine if Richard Clarke says, no, it looks like a car cyber attack. Well, then I need someone to investigate if it's a car cyber attack. I don't know how we investigate that, but I would get, if I was the government, I would say, look, I need every inspector general that's supposed to overlook their departments that are involved or could possibly be involved in this to overlook their departments. And you get me the best possible guys to try to figure out what happened to that car. And think about why it's so hard to detect, too. Not only is it hard to tell when it's done, but afterwards, the car was such a fiery mess that the whole thing melted down. How are you going to go back and get the evidence? It is going to be enormously hard to prove one way or another. Second of all, if I was Mercedes-Benz, I would be highly motivated. Because right now, if you go with the official storyline, Mercedes-Benz explode upon impact. If you're going a little too fast and you hit something, look, crashes happen and sometimes fires happen. But apparently, if you're in a new Mercedes and you hit something too fast, it is going to be the largest explosion you can imagine. And it is going to be an unbelievably fiery death. The engine is going to be thrown about 50 to 60 yards. Is that what Mercedes wants? If I was Michael Hastings' family, I would want an investigation overall by the top intelligence people we have, if Richard Clarke is right, that can figure out if it was a cyber attack or not. I would sue Mercedes-Benz saying, hey, we didn't sign up for our son being, burned up in an accident like that. And if it's not the fault of your car, then tell me whose fault it is. And third of all, I also need to know who might have called Michael Hastings at 4 o'clock in the morning before he got in that car at about 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. Now, if he got a call and somebody said, get on the road when there's no one else on the road, well, that would be a relevant data point. It's not conclusive, but it would be interesting to know. And we do know that the NSA has all those calls. They have every single call. They claim maybe they have the content, maybe they don't. They do. But they admit they have the number called and the number that it's coming from. This would be a good time to find that number, if there is such a number. But one thing's for sure, it's no longer possible to dismiss this as, oh, crazy talk, oh, no way. It's not legitimate. It shouldn't even be within the range of options we're considering. No, if Richard Clarke says that a car cyber attack is possible, and in this particular case is also possible, not just generically, but in this case, it is in the range of options, and it needs to be considered and investigated thoroughly.
New details tonight about the driver who was killed in a violent crash in Hollywood early this morning. Rolling Stone magazine is reporting that journalist Michael Hastings is the one that was killed. His reporting, you may remember, is credited with bringing down the career of General Stanley McChrystal. KTLA 5's Dave Meekum live in Hancock Park tonight. He's got more on this story. Hello, Dave.
Hello. In terms of L.A. County, 1:17 at this hour, but in terms of Rolling Stone magazine, as you just heard, and then the website BuzzFeed, both reporting that this man, this driver, was one of their own. Rolling Stone magazine called Michael Hastings a fearless journalist who refused to cozy up to power. His death at 33 came by way of a fire-fueled and explosive crash where Hancock Park meets Hollywood there at Highland and Melrose.
It sounded like a bomb went off in the middle of the night. My house shook. The windows were rattling.
Hastings was a 2010 Polk Award winner for magazine reporting. He was alone in what investigators say was a brand new Mercedes.
I couldn't have written a scene like this for a movie where the engine flies from the car, which was about, 50, 60 yards up, right down here to this telephone pole.
That from a longtime Hollywood producer Gary Grossman. Well, about 4:30 in the morning, his neighbor and a garden hose and all they were up against. No other vehicles were involved in this crash up against that palm tree. Hastings, meanwhile, will likely partially be remembered in journalism circles for taking down the career of General Stanley McChrystal, the then Supreme Commander of the U.S.-led war effort in Afghanistan. That was by way of his reporting in Rolling Stone magazine. And back live at Vantage Point northbound on Highland, a lot of Angelinos recognize that Vantage Point. Melrose at Highland, the group Hatzalah, a Jewish group here in the neighborhood, they were first responders for them here, blocking traffic, doing what they could, waiting for the fire department at that early morning hour, about 4:30 this morning. In Hancock Park, Dave Meekum, KTL.
News about car hacking is spreading. No, not carjacking, car hacking, the remote control takeover of a vehicle, and then just remotely disabling the brakes, disabling the airbags, pressing the pedal to the metal, and causing the car to crash. The newest cyber weapon in the federal family's arsenal. Your friends at the FBI, CIA, NSA, who most likely did this to Michael Hastings, the Rolling Stone journalist. All evidence indicates that this is what caused his bizarre, fiery crash. As the man who was described as driving like a grandma just happened to blow through a red light at full speed and crash into a tree and have his car burst into flames and die when he was one of the key reporters reporting on the latest NSA Orwellian iceberg news. And so people have been finally learning about car hacking. It's been out for a few years, but the Michael Hastings murder has finally woken up a lot of people, including former counterterrorism analyst Richard Clarke, who was on the National Security Council during the Bush administration, who gave an interview with the Washington Post, the Washington Compost, really a garbage online newspaper. But the fact that they did interview Richard Clarke about this subject is important. And Richard Clarke says that the Michael Hastings death is, quote, consistent with a car cyber attack. Okay, this isn't just some random website. This isn't just some random person saying this. This is someone who George Bush appointed to the National Security Council. All right, this is a big level guy, high level guy, and said that all the evidence is consistent. You know, there is reason to believe that intelligence agencies for major powers know how to remotely seize control of a car. Yeah, of course, a couple years ago, the New York Times did an article about this, covered that researchers at the University of California, San Diego, and the University of Washington showed how they could just remotely take over a vehicle, disable the brakes, press the pedal to the metal, disable the airbags, take over virtually every electronic component of the car. Computer World also covered the story. Thankfully, Michael Savage this week covered the Michael Hastings cyber hack. Didn't laugh it off, discussed it in detail. Audio clip of that has been posted on YouTube under Michael Savage on Michael Hastings' death. Suspect's car was hacked intentionally. Car and Driver did an article about it a couple years ago. Can your car be hacked? So, Michael Hastings, just hours before his death, reported that the FBI was harassing him, investigating him, harassing his friends and close associates, family. Said that he was going off the radar because he was working on the biggest story yet. The biggest story yet. So, all evidence indicates, and it's extremely reasonable to believe, that this accident was not an accident. I mean, possibly they could have put an incendiary device in the car as well, and then just caused him to crash, and then as soon as he crashed, going 70 miles an hour, just remotely activated the incendiary device to make sure that the entire car gets blown to a smithereens. So, BBC Auto just covered this. Car hacking gets real. June 24th, 2013, just hours really after the Michael Hastings hacking story started getting spread. So, there you go. Cars can be hacked. I mean, this is the Orwellian nightmare that we're living into. When the NSA, FBI, CIA can just remotely activate your car, disable the brakes. When you're just driving down the freeway with your kids or on your way to work, going 70 miles an hour down the freeway, just, whoops, disable your brakes. Just press the pedal to the metal, disable the airbags. If you got electronic power steering, they could probably just steer your car. Just cause you to just crash right into the median, right into a tree. Apparently, Michael Hastings' wife believes that her husband was murdered. One of his close friends gave an interview recently that said, who said he drove his car like a grandma. And it's just been reported that Michael Hastings' wife said that she wants to get whoever did this. So, sorry, NSA. Sorry, Big Brother. We've caught you again. You got to admit, this is pretty slick. I mean, just a few years ago, nobody would have ever even fathomed that this is possible. But you got to hand it to the power-tripping trash, these Illuminati scumbags, to, when new technology comes about, they just got to figure out a way to tap into it, a way to use it to murder people, to blackmail people, to hijack the technology, to pervert it from its original use. So there you have it. Now you know about car hacking. Like I said, not carjacking. Everybody's familiar with the phenomenon of carjacking. Someone comes up and robs somebody at gunpoint in their car and just, throws them out of the vehicle and takes the car. Now we have car hacking. Now we have the government just hacking into people's cars and causing them to crash. This needs to be seriously investigated. I mean, this needs to be investigated by an independent group or some forensic firm. But that's why they put the possible incendiary device in the car, just to make sure that everything's melted, just to make sure that they couldn't go into the computer and retrace and track to find out if there was a remote entry into the car, if a RAT, a remote administrator tool, was just used on the car. So I will continue to be following this story, this absolutely horrific Orwellian story, as the tip of the Orwellian iceberg gets exposed. So I'm Mark Dice. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new. Check out some of the previous videos. Stay tuned for Man on the Street Mondays. Every Monday I venture out and talk to the average American to show just how far gone their brains have went just down the toilet. Just the sewer sipping scum, the peon public. Their minds are mush. So anyway, thanks for watching. There's more videos coming soon.